It's that time when bad is good and terrible is even better. Yes, it's this week's Zaius Report, your weekly look at cult movies and other crap. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome your host, the movie man who knows it all and where the bodies are buried. His horrorness, the Prince of Slime, the original invader for Mars himself, the man for whom the phrase B-grade was invented. Welcome, Zaius.
Well, welcome to another podcast of the Zaius Report with myself, Warren, and of course, sitting not actually sitting with me, sitting on the other side of the world, we of course have Gary. How you going, Gary?
I'm good. I've just been lost in the woods, but I'm back again now.
Oh, that's good. No witchcraft?
No, none that I could see of, but there was a man called Billy with all the buttons missing off his raincoat.
Oh, well, at least you're back. You're back. And of course, introducing, for the first time on this podcast, Cliff from a podcast that you may have also listened to, sort of a bit of a sister-brother podcast, you might say. Cliff from Only Funny to Us. How you going, Cliff?
Great. Appreciate you inviting me on the show.
Oh, no, look, well, obviously I have been on Cliff's show a couple of times, so I do appreciate that, and it's fantastic to have you on board to talk about some lunacy films, some scary films, and some, I don't know, just outright nausea, I suppose, with some, but no, it's fantastic to have you here, so thanks, guys. I, of course, really appreciate it. This, of course, is podcast number 11. I think it's number 11. I'm sort of starting to lose count, to be truthful. But I suppose enough of all of that. We should talk movies, I suppose. And the first cab off the rank is a movie that I must admit, the very first time I saw, I didn't like it. And then I saw it again, only yesterday, and I fell in love with it. And it is Blair Witch 2, The Book of Shadows.
Yes.
Now, I know you love this movie, don't you, Gary?
I've always been a defender of this film for all my faults.
It's got a lot of bad press, I suppose, over the years, because, I mean, it is, of course, called Blair Witch 2, and it is, but it's not really a sequel to Blair Witch, is it? I mean, it's a totally different movie that just sets itself around the story of Blair Witch. Would that be fair comment?
Yeah. I'd say it was sort of more of the same way that Shock Treatment is to Rocky Horror. It's sort of like an equal as opposed to a sequel.
Yes, but one thing that we should point out about this film is it's not actually found footage. Like Blair Witch itself, it's actually shot as a normal film. And I'll just run through a couple of things about it, and then we can sort of talk about it in a little bit more depth. Now, it was released in 2000, directed by Bill Carrio, I think he's pronounced his name, stars Jeffrey Donovan, Kim Director, Tristan Schuyler, Erica somebody or other. I can't read what I wrote.
We apologise, Erica something or other.
Yes, I think it's Erica Lershin, I think is her name, and Stephen Barker, who are our main cast. There are, of course, a few other characters in the movie, but these are our main people. So just to give everyone a very quick rundown, this movie is basically set just after Blair Witch was released. Now, in this movie, the Blair Witch Project, the original found footage movie, is not meant to be seen as being a real event. It's actually looking at it as if it was a movie. In other words, they're looking at it from real life. And in the town where it was set, of course, they're cashing in on all the fame that has come from this movie. And one guy has actually set up a tour guide, a tour company to take people around the Black Hills, where, of course, the movie was all shot, on, sort of these weekend camping trips to try to embrace the concept of Blair Witch. But the problem is that when Jeffrey, who's our tour guide, actually takes these group of 4 people out with him, it all goes horribly wrong. Would that be a fair assessment?
Yeah.
Pear-shaped.
It absolutely tits up. I mean, what they basically what they find is that although the Blair Witch Project may have been a fantasy movie, it's all make-believe, that doesn't mean there isn't witches out in this forest. There's something out in the woods today. What are your thoughts about it all, Gary? I mean, I know you love it. How do you think that the two movies worked with each other, Blair Witch and then Blair Witch 2?
I think looking at it now, I mean, I saw it at the theatre back in the day and loved it instantly, but looking at it now, it does flow a lot better. I think people were expecting way too much found footage after the first one. They were just expecting it to carry on where that left off, whereas this took a completely different turn and twisted the whole thing around, whereas before they told you it was all real, now they're telling you it's not, and this is. I do actually like the approach that they did for the sequel, but unfortunately it flopped big time.
It definitely got a lot of bad press, and I know when I saw it for the first time, I was, I suppose, very disappointed because I was hoping, actually, for another found footage movie. And, of course, you know, this one isn't. But
Should be careful what you wish for, it's all we get now.
That's right. But then when I watched it a second time, I mean, I actually hadn't watched it since the very first time, you know, back in, 2000, when I originally saw it. But watching it again yesterday, I realised this movie is actually really, really good. It really stands up. And I love the fact in this movie that what we're seeing happen isn't actually what's happening. We need to keep looking at the videotape to see what's really happening, because what they're doing is, like, in their minds, they think they're doing the exact reverse of what they're actually doing.
Yeah.
And that's absolutely a fascinating part about the film.
I think the problem with Blair Witch 2 was it was too clever for its own good, to be honest. I think it was too clever for a sequel.
It was. I mean, the ending of Blair Witch. I mean, with the actual original film, Cliff, I mean, what did you think of the original? Obviously not just this remake, but the original, like, for instance, with found footage and so forth. Are you a fan of that?
The original, a lot of Americans got sick. To be honest, that was the big hoopla about the original movie, is that it was making so many people motion sick. That was
which they turned around in the press as saying people are fainting in this movie,
and which was perfect publicity for the film, and that's really what made it a huge hit at the beginning. And the ending, though, left up in the air like it was, you know, it suddenly kind of dropped, and you have to assume or presume what actually happened next. A lot of people don't like that. They like a nice, clean wrap-up of... Americans are so used to sitcom television. Everything's wrapped up at the end. And that's true. All action television shows, drama television shows, everything is wrapped up in a nice little package at the end, and that's when you tell the single joke and then the credits roll. That's what everyone kind of expects. And unfortunately, they didn't get it with that one, so it added to the publicity even more of, well, what actually happened? Was this real? Was it not? It's a fun movie to watch when you're the first one is fun to watch when you're by yourself or with 10 people and you're all drinking. It's really fun to see who gets sick
also,
first.
The PR machine around the original movie was phenomenal. I don't think we'll ever see anything to that level again.
No, not that kind of viral video. The viral, just the internet. That was one of the really early in the internet of viral.
TV news coverage of these 3 missing kids as well that wasn't even real.
And that now so many films and so many television shows use British television is notorious for getting Jon Snow to do bits during shows and to have him read fake headlines all the time.
Yeah.
Even Charlie Brooker's good for that. He'll bring in real news people from the BBC, which I love.
Legend.
I love Charlie Brooker. I really watch everything he does. I try to find.
It's probably one of the greatest zombie things you'll ever watch in your life.
And the Black Mirror series. Those truly the Black Mirror with the Prime Minister.
Yeah, which actually happened in real life.
Yes,
I know. Isn't that amazing?
That one really struck. I mean, that one was psycho. I don't usually get emotionally freaked out at television shows, but that one just blew my mind. Wow,
it's the
got
realism
one he got
of
on the air. It's freaky. That one just messed with my head so bad. What would you imagine? How could you imagine that actually happening in your country or in our country or in any country? You have to do this with the pig. And it has to be. Anyway, we're going far from
we are digressing somewhat, but
I apologize.
I know it's all fascinating stuff. I can never get that pig out of my head now.
Let's not go down that route.
Yeah. But the one thing I have to admit about Blair Witch 2 is that we definitely have a real ending to this movie. Unlike Blair Witch 1, which sort of leaves you with, like, what's actually sort of happened. We actually do get a real ending to this. And were you happy with that, Gary, or would you have preferred an ending which left us maybe thinking a little bit more, like as in Blair Witch 1?
No, I think Blair Witch 2 works that it makes you think throughout. You don't need to think afterwards. I'm happy that it's got an actual ending, whereas the ending of Blair Witch 1 haunted me for days after I saw it at the cinema. It was freaky, whereas Blair Witch 2 is it works as a standalone movie, which is a good thing as well. If you haven't seen the first one, it still works.
That is actually very true. You can watch Blair Witch 2, Book of Shadows, and never actually have watched the Blair Witch Project. And the movie does definitely work, because all you really need to know is that there was a movie made called Blair Witch. Yes, you don't actually have to have seen it to actually watch and enjoy this movie. And I think what I said originally is the thing that I really love about this is, and I really want to get your thoughts on this, Gary, is this idea of they don't realise what they're doing. It's like they've somehow become possessed by the witch, and they're like what they're actually doing. We see them doing one thing, and then we see the footage later, and they're doing something totally different. Did you like? I mean, obviously, I think you liked that, Gary.
I did. I like that a lot. I like any movie that can twist on itself and still be an entertaining ride without you thinking too much of how the hell did that happen.
I think the other thing too is that we don't, sort of as the film progresses as well, we don't really know who is or who isn't possessed. The movie lets us sort of think that Erica is probably the one who's been possessed by the witch, or maybe Tristan is the one who's been possessed by the witch. But as the movie goes on, we sort of find out that what we thought at the start of the film isn't necessarily what's really happening. And so it keeps us thinking all the time.
It does. It's a very good film. It's not an easy watch if you just want like a popcorn horror movie. You're in the wrong place. But if you actually want something that'll make you think for a bit, it's a good one.
Oh, you've definitely got to think. I mean, it's like if you actually, let's say, didn't hit pause, went out and made a cup of coffee and came back, you're actually going to lose very, very crucial bits of information for the movie. It's like you can't miss a 3-minute bit of this movie, otherwise you're going to miss, because the plot keeps changing all the time. Like, we never know who is doing what to who, and it just keeps you mesmerised and fixed on the screen, I feel.
It really does.
This is really one that I think we'd recommend. Wouldn't you think so, Gary?
I've always recommended it and been looked at in complete disgust every time I mention it to anyone.
Well, why do you reckon it got such a bad press?
It's because people weren't expecting it. They were expecting a certain thing. They didn't get it. Also, with how complicated the plot actually is, there is certain horror viewers out there that are just dumb as pig shit, and and if they don't understand something, that is then they attack it. I mean, it happens with a lot of films as well. If they didn't fall for if they fell for the trick, it's like the movie April Fool's Day from 1986. The ending of that divides horror fans a lot. There's horror fans that absolutely adore it, and there's horror fans that absolutely hate it. And the people that hated it are the people that fell for it. They don't want to admit that they fell for it. There's certain sort of snobbery over plots in the horror community.
It's interesting that, isn't it? With anything though, a community sort of builds up, and whether it be about reality TV, whether it be about movies, whether it be about anything, you often seem to get these various different groups who, shall we say, become very, very aggressive towards each other simply because they don't agree on
Yes.
on where a movie has gone, or on an ending, or or some such thing. I often find, like, social media, Twitter and so forth, you can just watch it explode with this sort of stuff. I mean, you find that in the Big Brother community all the time, don't you?
Oh God, it's vicious. It is absolutely vicious. You've never seen hell like an angry cat lady. I'm telling you now.
It's I find it absolutely fascinating the way that stuff sort of happens. But look, I think definitely if you want a thinking person's horror movie, then I really cannot just express how much I really like this movie, The Book of Shadows. The other thing too, Gary. Now, of course, it's perfect timing for this because, of course, Blair Witch has been remade.
Well, it's not remade; it's a new sequel.
Well, it's a new sequel as such, but
sort of forgetting what happened in the second one, where they say it's just a movie. We're completely ignoring that.
So it's a little bit like we've got the original Blair Witch, which we were meant to believe. Then in number 2, we were meant to believe, no, it was just a movie. This is actually the real Blair Witch project. And then now in number 3, we're being told, no, number 2 was actually just a movie. Number 1 was real.
Yes. Yeah, that's exactly it.
It's up there with what is it, Alien? If you follow the Alien movies, and then of course into Prometheus, you have to sort of forget that the Alien versus Predator movies were ever made.
Yes.
Because it just throws the whole story out of whack.
It really does. It's like anybody who's trying to watch the Wizard of Oz trilogy from Disney, that's an interesting one as well. You go from Oz the Great and Powerful to the 1939 Wizard of Oz into Return to Oz, and you're completely mindfucked by the end. It's like, what's going on? And then you listen to the Wicked soundtrack and you're even more baffled than you were before.
But actually, a question to both of you. Do you actually think, like with the Alien movies, that there's 2 Alien versus Predator movies, aren't there, I think?
Yeah, the first one's all right. The second one is in so much darkness, you might as well just turn the lights off and go to sleep for a bit.
Yes. Although I do like in the second one. Is it the second one, I think, where the father's talking to his daughter and says, there's no such thing as monsters, just as he gets ripped out of the window by a monster?
Yes.
Which I did think was very good. But do you reckon you can actually keep those 2 movies and still watch all of the Alien stuff?
I think the best way to do it, I mean, I've learnt this being a horror fan over the years and being a huge fan of the Halloween movies and Nightmare on Elm Street, the Friday the 13th. You have to have separate sort of storylines. You have to have, like, you have to go into Doctor Who, timey-wimey, wibbly-wobbly stuff of parallel universes. I think, like, the Alien vs. Predator movies are a separate entity. You don't count them in with the original runs.
Right.
The same way that you wouldn't really count Halloween 4 and 5 and 6 in with the rest of the other Halloween movies, because at one point, like, Jamie Lee Curtis is dead, then she's not dead, then she had a daughter, gave up the daughter, and now in Halloween H2O she's got a son that was older than the daughter she had before, but yet why didn't she give the son up that she gave the daughter up?
Oh, that's brilliant. I love it. I love it. What do you think, Cliff? I mean, do you have problems when? I mean, obviously, we're just discussing how this is happening exactly now with Blair Witch, where we're making a group of films, but we often have to reject certain films in the storyline for the story to work.
No, and it's probably different writers, different directors, different producers even for these films. Of course, even if it's the same, they're going to go with what's popular at the time. So going off on a tangent's not a big problem, and you're always suspending reality, suspending your disbelief to watch any movie, pretty much. So I don't have a problem with them going anywhere they want to go with it.
Also, you've got to remember as well that Blair Witch 1 is a hit and is still watched regularly by people to this day, whereas Blair Witch 2 isn't. So it makes more logical sense to do the sequel to the original than to the second one.
True. Well, I was very interested to find that, of course, Blair Witch is readily available, of course, on Netflix, iTunes, and so forth. But Blair Witch 2, The Book of Shadows, isn't. If you want this movie, you're going to actually have to go and buy it. Unfortunately, it doesn't appear to be, although maybe it's on US Netflix.
I don't
have to give me a
think
few.
it is.
Oh, you can find it faster than I can, actually.
That's something I hadn't thought of. I know it's not in Australia, but it's not even on iTunes, which I was a little bit surprised by. I would have expected it to have been there. So, unfortunately, I mean, look, obviously, I'm not 100% sure about Netflix in the US, but realistically, you're going to have to hop on Amazon and actually buy a copy.
But you can get one through the Amazon sellers for like a pound or $1 or something. They're relatively cheap.
Yes, I think it's one of those with, as we said last week, with the postage is going to cost you more than the movie.
Yes, definitely.
But one thing I do want to say, just to to everybody listening, is that if you've heard bad things about this movie, try to just put it out of your mind, because this movie is actually very good. Yes, it's obviously very different to the original, but it works in so well with the original. It's quite a different story. You won't get that seasickness that we spoke about, obviously, because it's shot as a real piece of sort of cinema rather than found footage. But I recommend to everybody, go out and get this one. You really won't be disappointed. As I said, I was disappointed.
Or if you watched it originally and didn't like it, give it another go now.
Yep, do exactly what I did. I watched it the first time, wasn't happy, watched it again, and absolutely fell in love with it. So
all we are saying is give Witch a chance.
Well done. Well done. All right, we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back. Well, next on our list for this podcast is, I have to say, an absolute abortion of a movie, but I still love it. And it is 12 to the Moon from 1960. Yes, black and white.
You called it an abortion of a movie. That's brilliant.
Yeah. Sorry, it's just how I feel. Yes, from 1960, part of obviously a black and white sci-fi movie, which is sort of falls a little bit back into that paranoia cinema that we've mentioned in the last two podcasts, actually. Would you agree with that? Would you see it as paranoia cinema?
It's definitely a Cold War era movie.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
So, just to give people a quick rundown, it's very similar to a movie, I suppose, if you've seen the, I think it was the Czech movie, I think it was Czech, First Spaceship on Venus.
Venus. Yeah.
No, it's actually East German, I think, wasn't it?
Wow. So Finnish, something like that.
Yeah,
it was one of those Euro countries. We don't deal with them anymore.
Something.
That's right. So
that's right. Oh.
So it's basically a it's obviously set in the future, or their future, as in 1960, and they put together a international space crew of the smartest and most intelligent and bravest people, supposedly, although that will change as we watch the movie, together into a spaceship to go and land on the moon. And it's
like the concept of Big Brother, isn't it? It's like, here's 12 really interesting people that will entertain us for the summer. Oh, they're dull. Oh, it doesn't matter.
It is. It's so much like Big Brother. So anyway, they take off on this rocket, and then of course, even though they're the brightest and the smartest in the world, the infighting starts on the spaceship. I think within about the first 30 seconds.
Again, like Big Brother.
They start doing medical checks as they're taking off. Okay, let's do the medicine now. Let's do the checkups now before we're in orbit. Brilliant.
So anyway, basically what happens is that they do get to the moon in the end. They land on the moon, but they find that the moon is inhabited by some sort of weird space creatures, I suppose you would say, that we don't really get to see. We only sort of get to imagine that they're there, and all sorts of weird things start to happen. Two of our crew get kidnapped by the aliens for, I don't know, some sort of experiment. Then they find all these special rocks and so forth on the moon, and then we'll talk about this in a bit more detail in a second. But they find all this stuff on the moon, and then they find that they're told to leave the moon, and they have to travel back to Earth, where they find out that basically the aliens have encased the United States, only the United States for some reason, in some sort of global warming frozen state. And then, of course, only these people on the spaceship have the knowledge to be able to save the United States. Apparently, no other scientist on Earth has the capability. So
not a good thing when you send all of your important scientists to the moon and not leave any behind.
Eggs in one basket.
So what's everyone's thoughts on this? Just go for it, guys.
I have to admit, I've seen this movie about 12 times because it's an MST3K film. Mm-hmm. Mystery Science Theater 3000, which I'm a huge addict of Mystery Science Theater. And it's coming
back. I can't wait.
Yes, I paid so much into that Kickstarter to get that television series back. It's going to be on Netflix too.
I've just been surviving on riff tracks for a while, so
same here. I got to all the ones that they show here locally. I love those. My wife has to be drugged to them. But anyway, this movie, oh my. Okay, let's suspend all disbelief of physics. Okay, there's no fog on. There's no steam in a vacuum. Number one, they have steam everywhere on the moon. There's none of that. 1/6 gravity. Nah, everything just falls. And I have to apologize because Biff Hardcheese, or whatever his name is, that the American commander Anderson. If you go back and listen to the film, listen to how he pronounces lunar. It's lunar, lunar. And nuclear, it's just like nuclear. All right, that one drives us. I mean, quicksand on the moon too. That's another one. I love that. Go get the magnetic buoy or whatever it was he was going to go get. Oh no, just let it go. He's gone. He's into the quicksand now. I have named the stone. What is that about? Why? And then yes, if the lava comes flowing out of a rock, run up and grab it. With both hands at the same time.
We should explain this. There's one of the scientists, I think it's the German scientist, who, when this lava starts pouring out of this rock on the moon. And so the first thing he decides to do is go and bathe in it.
Yeah.
Now, what
idiot.
What would you, and the other thing too is that we're talking about the cast. I mean, what have we got? We've got an American who's meant to be the commander of the mission. We've got a German scientist who's meant to be, was it an ex-Nazi? We've
also an American.
Yes, we've got a Japanese scientist who
another American.
It sounds incredible. Yes, I know. We've got a Nigerian who seems to be. I don't know, like everything for it, it's like it's alive, it's in my brain, it's evil.
He's got spidey sense too. He can tell that there's a problem before anyone knows. Funny how that became a trope here with the whole Bagger Vance theory of American films, and you know what I'm talking about, the magic black man, as they put it. That has happened multiple times in recent history. That's probably just due to Hollywood trying to make up for being racist for years. You got a Swedish person, you got a French person, a Brit.
So the horror equivalent is the
Japanese.
crazy person in the town that warns everybody about what's
That's
going to
it.
happen and nobody listens.
That's Dennis Quaid. The Dennis Quaid of the film.
But it's like, how cliche can some of these? I mean, the Englishman is like Sir somebody other, like he's got a knighthood. The Jewish, the Israeli, I should say, the Israeli person turns out to be the son of the Nazi. Right? I mean, where's all this stuff come from? And the Japanese scientist who's on the ship is just miraculously able to read every bit of Asian language ever written in the world.
Not going to happen.
And also,
They're very intelligent people.
but why are these aliens communicating with Americans in Japanese?
Exactly.
It's just absolutely hilarious. And the other thing too that I found amazing about this was that when the Swede and I think another American is kidnapped by the aliens, and they're not because they want to keep them to study them, which turns out apparently to be America's saving grace, because of course the aliens find out that there is good inside humanity, not just evil.
I'm yet to find it.
Yes. And but for some reason, when they're told by the aliens that they must leave the moon immediately and return to Earth, they insist that they leave the cats behind.
Yeah.
Now,
that was
why the
weird.
cats? I mean, we understand why there's all these animals on the spaceship. It's meant to see, how they react to space travel. But the thing I love about it is they're just roaming around the spaceship. Like there's this dog who just walks around the spaceship.
Oh yeah, the one of the stone samples they bring on board catches fire. They don't have a smoke detector or fire alarm, but they have a dog that barks to let them know that something's on fire. Yet we're going to the moon.
It is absolutely wonderful. I mean, look, I love this. I really do. I mean, it is so silly. It's so stupid. It's so 1960s. But it's still great fun to watch.
I have a useless bit of information that will amaze you. Did you know that this movie is used in business schools and workshops to illustrate team dynamics and conflict resolution techniques?
Oh my God.
No wonder the world's screwed.
So what is this? Did they use this as basically how not to run a business?
So if two people fall in love, leave them behind.
That's right.
Just let them go. They're gone. If you've got animals, eject them now. Get them out. Just leave them out in the world, and then leave. Yeah.
I don't know which company uses it. Probably Trump. I don't know.
Oh, no, that's being charitable.
Oh, it's up there with reading The Art of the Deal, I think. But it's the other thing too that's very interesting. I mean, with the special effects that too in this movie, one of the things I love is that their space boots are lace-up army boots.
Yeah, they're Doc Martens.
Yeah, I know. And
if you watch when they first get climbing down the ladder out of the ship. If you look in the back, you can see the Klieg lights and the racks in the background. If you look very closely, you can see the racks where the lights are. It's amazing. And then there's one shot where they haven't gotten out of the ship yet, but you see a person walking away at the back of the set. If you look real close, you'll see someone in it. I guess it's a reused shot of someone disappearing.
Also, a lot of the
shadow.
actors didn't actually work together either, because according to IMDb, many of the shots of the actors were filmed on their own and edited together afterwards. They didn't even have anybody to act off.
So maybe in the movie, obviously, that half of them disliked each other. Maybe that was the case in real life. Maybe they just didn't get on.
I wouldn't be surprised. This movie, they made it for $150,000 in 1960. Adjusted for inflation, that's $1.2 million. It's not great for $1.2 million.
And how much did Halloween cost, and how effective was that?
Jeez. And that one was a continuing trend.
But the other thing, too, is that to get around the idea of actually having to put space helmets on these people, they have invisible glass. Now...
I believe that one. The favorite part of that is when they get on they're looking at this little instrument that has a little bellows that's breathing. Oh, there must be air. I'll just take my helmet off. No, it could be cyanide gas. You don't know. Just pop the helmet off. Oh, it must be air. No, it's not air. You don't know. And they just take their helmets off on the moon in a cave. Great idea.
Oh,
I do wonder whether us three have seen it in a completely different light to how it's meant to be, because it's listed in the 1001 movies you must see before you die.
For prisoners, maybe. People in prison or concentration camps in North Korea.
It's the last movie before you die, and you go, yep, that's it, I'm ready to go now.
1001 movies that will kill you.
But clearly with this movie, it is playing with that, sort of Cold War paranoia that we've spoken about before. Because, I mean, it's interesting that only the United States gets frozen. Like, the rest of the world doesn't get frozen. And, of course, our traitor in this movie, it's interesting, too, that in an American movie, the traitor just happens to be French.
I didn't understand that. The one that got me is when they're introducing everyone at the beginning, and the Russian gentleman is introduced as Russian when clearly it was the Soviet Union at the time.
I think that's just bad writing, to be honest, because
there's plenty of that.
Bad writing in this film? No. It's one of the 1001 films to see before you die.
But I can remember when I was young, though, people used to refer to Soviets as Russians.
True. I mean, maybe they just didn't want to say it. I don't know. It's just unusual that, well, maybe not. Maybe I'm nitpicking.
The best movie to cover this issue is Jumpin' Jack Flash from 1986. I recommend everybody see that one.
Oh, yes. Oh yes. But the other thing too is that it's interesting that the traitor, as in, because this movie is still playing with the idea of communism versus capitalism, and it's interesting that the actual traitor, the one who wants to turn the world communist, is not the Russian, it's the Frenchman.
It's the Frenchman.
Who's the closet communist. And in fact, the Russian or the Soviet in this movie won't actually join in his crusade to make the world communist. They're almost like sort of saying that it's not the Soviet Union which is so bad, it's our own closet communists that we've got to be scared about. It's like McCarthyism.
McCarthyism, yeah. And blacklisting and all that, the fun part of America.
Yeah,
did you have all the stories that would actually put law and order to shame?
But did you see that though? I mean, did you sort of feel that that's going back to that paranoia idea? It's like we've got to be scared of the Reds under the bed. It's like the army can deal with the Soviets, but what are we going to do about the communists in our own country?
True, and then we were just out of the Korean War at the same time, so we just lost Korea about this time, in 1960. According to the beginning of the movie, they say it's 33 years after the Great War, so that puts this movie in 1972 through 1978 is when it's supposed to be taking place. Their hair wouldn't be that short.
I think it is amazing actually watching. Not just this movie, but so many of these movies from the 1950s and 60s where they're set, in the 1970s, the 1980s, or the 2000s, and what they think the world was going to be like. I mean, I find it sometimes that just as fascinating as the movie, like what their idea of what the future was going to be.
You did one. Did you do? No, that was 12th Moon. Moonbase.
Moonbase.
Moonbase?
Yes, I have spoken about Moonbase before.
In the beginning of that one, and there's no gravity, and they're walking on the walls and the ceiling to get into the rooms and stuff. You remember that? I always thought that was out there. Well, we're going to have no gravity.
That movie actually gets, even though it's an appalling movie because it's,
yes, it is.
It's once again, it's a statement of capitalism versus communism and all the rest of it. But its special effects actually weren't too bad for when it was made.
True. They spent some money.
And I have to admit, the heroine or the female star in that one, I mean, that bra must have been made out of, I don't know, titanium.
It's that radioactive bra from War of the Worlds I was talking about last week.
Yes. I'm sure it was. But I love that movie, though. It's in the end where they actually get forced to land on the moon in Moonbase, and then the president, like, you think it's going to be like, you think this movie is going to actually be a little bit forward thinking because the president is a female, right? And it's made in the 1950s, so you think, okay, they're really forward thinking. But then the president demands that the two of them have to get married because they can't have a male and a female single person on the moon together. You know,
they have two they have two single beds on that ship. Apparently.
So,
like Lucy and Rick.
Yeah, have to sleep in single beds.
There.
Oh yes.
Oh, but yeah, and Moonbase, I can still remember when the general in charge of the space program actually threatens to spank the female pilot.
Yes, I think that's actually our Dr. Bellows, I believe, from I Dream of Jeannie, if I'm not mistaken.
It was. I've forgotten the actor's name, but yes, he would go on to play the beloved Dr. Bellows. One of my favorite TV characters of all time, I have to admit, Dr. Bellows.
Always just right behind the plot, just never quite catches up.
Never quite there.
I loved I Dream of Jeannie as a kid because the thing if you watch the first season, it's, you know, in black and white, it's so different to where the show would progress onto, you know, in its later time. But in its later years, it was just hilarious. I mean, the idea that America's two top astronauts were so uncoordinated, so clumsy, so it was just, I just loved every minute of it.
The Martian? They all bloody leave him.
Yes. Oh, The Martian. I like The Martian.
Talking about sitcom, though, I just want to chuck in, for anybody who might be interested, that Darren from Bewitched needs a slap.
Which one?
Both.
They swapped them halfway through and scared the hell out of America.
Oh, he treated Sam like shit. I mean, I'd be like, fuck you, bitch.
It was a very...
Plus, she was way out of league anyway. I mean, you think he'd be grateful for what he had.
Oh, Elizabeth Montgomery? She was way out of his league.
Elizabeth Montgomery.
I used to love that show.
It's,
oh my God.
I got to admit, I was always an I Dream of Jeannie person, not a Bewitched person.
Is that because I Dream of Jeannie is slightly more sexual?
No, well, I suppose maybe I did like that outfit, I have to admit, that she used to wear. But I just thought it was funny. I just thought Major Nelson and Major Healy, that friendship they had, and such ludicrous situations they would get themselves into every single week because Jeannie wouldn't really understand what was going on. I loved it. I'm
actually watching Lucy for the first time ever at the moment.
Oh, the original I Love Lucy, yeah.
I didn't think it would be as laugh out loud hilarious as it actually is, because I was expecting something, like Bewitched Genie, it's sort of tame, light-hearted comedy. I wasn't expecting to actually laugh till I cried.
I Love Lucy is regarded as a milestone in American television. It is.
It's amazing.
Yes, and there are so many of the plots that they started on that show that have ended up still being used on sitcoms today. Just, production line, things moving too fast, can't handle it. How do you go to the slapstick comedy? It's the dynamics are still used today, that the husband's not all that smart or the wife's not all that smart. Usually it's the husband now.
Yes.
But yeah, it was a milestone, and it is highly regarded in American television history.
It's an amazing show. I mean, I was Team Brady Bunch up until I saw Lucy, and now I'm like, hang on, I want to be in this family now instead.
I love the Brady Bunch. I was the same. I wanted to be part of that family. So many people did.
Greg, but that was one of those.
So Greg was your favourite?
Oh, Greg was beautiful in the early days. Not now.
We had one of them. Okay, I live in a town that has forgive me, a NASCAR track, and the race was yes, all right, absolutely right. I live maybe 10 miles away from that track, and when the race runs, you can hear it. Barry Williams I believe that was his name.
Yeah, that's
sang
his
the
name.
national anthem before the race this year, so he was in town. So you should have, come on over.
Oh, wow.
Could have met him.
Go,
Could have met
Barry.
him. Yeah, well,
Imagine if we got together, Barry and Gary. God, that would have been.
But he's actually gone on. He's made quite a number of movies for sci-fi, though, hasn't he, Gary? He was in Mega Piranha. He was in is it Bigfoot?
Yes.
He was in along with Danny Bonaducci.
oh wow, Danny Bonaducci was in
I don't know
CSI.
who runs the casting process for Asylum and Sci-Fi, but they really know their like 70s and 80s TV, don't they? They really
Well, there's such a great line.
search for a while that will say yes.
There's such a great line, though, in Bigfoot where I think it was Danny Bonaducci actually says to Barry Williams, they're having an argument, and he sort of says, what is it, I slept with your mum.
Oh,
Which, of course, if anyone knows a little bit about
Yeah.
the behind-the-scenes stuff of the Brady Bunch will get that joke.
yeah.
The behind the scenes of the Brady Bunch is like a porn movie. It's just unbelievable.
But weren't they all basically dating? Well, apart from... I've got
the little ones, yeah. Cindy Williams and
I don't think...
not Cindy Williams.
Yeah, I don't think they were dating.
The youngest, that wasn't the youngest, weren't, but
But the others were dating each other, I think, weren't they, at one stage? Barry Williams...
I heard the actress who played Cindy say that her and Bobby were actually engaged on the set.
It's- but I have to admit, I've actually seen all the Brady Bunch movies, and I've even seen the Brady Wives. I've even seen where they brought, and also they brought back the Brady Bunch. I don't know if you
the TV movies, those were made for television by the television companies and shown on television, not in the movie theaters.
It was strange to see
a lot of them.
It's strange to see a cast that you know so well for comedy do drama. It was the most bizarre sort of jump.
It was like when the father's trapped in the collapsed building, and so they what do? They sing a prayer or a hymn or something, which miraculously helps him find his way out of the collapsed building.
Well, it's Mrs. Brady, you see. She was famous for singing her Christmas carol that one episode, Carol's Carol.
Did she lose? And she lost her voice. But the miracle of Christian Christmas brought her voice back just in time.
Father's right.
That one brought up a bunch of tropes too. Trapped in a meat locker, or trapped in which means turns into trapped in an elevator, and it's usually people who are fighting that are forced to make up or come to some big understanding or not be racist anymore or some odd thing like that. That
Which
one's
I've
still used
noticed
today.
has been used more nowadays than it was then. I mean, they use it a lot now to resolve, because there were a lot of shows like it's a continuing story now. They tend to use that trope a lot just to settle that storyline.
Yep. I'm a big collector of tropes. I love them, and you can spot them from a mile away. There's a website called TV Tropes, and you can get lost in there. It is just a huge database of every trope. I even looked up for 12 to the Moon. Looked up the tropes. There's listed in their website 35 or 40 of them.
I'm gonna have to go to this site.
This is. Did you know the address of the site?
TV Tropes.
Just TV Tropes.
TVTropes.com, I believe, and it is. You can get lost in there. It's just. It's every Three's Company. You may not know that one. Trying to think of the most popular ones. Every MASH is in there, but it's just years and years and years of television plot. Yes. I guarantee you it's there. It's just every plot device, every MacGuffin, every Chekhov's gun you can think of is on that show. It's on that website, listed and explained and cross-referenced. You can get just utterly lost. I've spent hours in there just reading through pages. And it covers every genre of television. It does cover. I'm pretty sure it covers I know it covers British television as well, because they reference it all. They reference everything because it's kind of like Wikipedia. Everybody can contribute to it, but there are a few people who edit it down and cross-check and cross-reference everything. But it is. I love that site. I'll if I get in there, I'm done. I'm there for the evening. I'm just reading.
I know what I'll be doing tonight then.
Yes, TV Tropes is amazing. And if you haven't heard of the show, there's a link there that'll explain every plot line of every episode of, and give you dates, times, who was there, special guest star, which is another trope. Everything is tropes. It's just how you put them together.
CSI, they're either the victim or the killer.
Oh, yes. It's always the first person they interview. It's always the first guy they interview. Every time. CSI is the first person they interview that they say, oh, he's not involved, and they let him go. And then 5
and then they
interviews later,
conveniently don't show them for 20 minutes, so you forget that they were there.
and those people never run out of the country or anything in that time. They're always, oh, yeah, he's down the block at the Walmart. Let's go get him.
So me and Warren have discussed this before, where it's like your average sort of investigation in a real CSI lab would take months. I mean, this is over a span of
DNA
months.
takes weeks or months, not 32 minutes.
But it's the other thing too. I love about it. And I don't know if American police forces are different to police forces in every other country in the world, but I've never in my life heard of a forensic or someone who works in the forensic lab actually going out and interviewing and arresting people.
Nope, doesn't happen.
Yeah, they also carry guns as well.
No, doesn't happen. They are people in lab coats who sit in a lab all day.
Was CSI Miami seemed to have space age technology, which New York and Vegas didn't have.
Yeah. Believe me, I've been in a couple of police departments because of my job, and no, they ship it all to some other department somewhere 45 miles away, and they do the work, and then they send the results back. They don't do that.
What is
my favorite one is the enhance. I work in security industry, and we have CCTV. There's no such thing. Believe me. There's no such thing.
I know for a fact there is no way you can get a clear picture from zooming in that far.
Nope, absolutely not. Cannot do it. Any photo editor will tell you that you cannot put something there that isn't already there.
But I'm sure it was one episode in CSI Miami I saw where they needed a photograph of the crime being committed. So they used the camera from the ATM, right? And then they enhanced the reflection of somebody's eyeball, which then showed the crime being committed. And in super high definition detail.
They did the same trick in Vegas a few times as well.
There was one in Vegas where they said, well, let's call up the Air Force and see if their government satellites have picked up that car sitting in that parking lot at that day. That's how that works. Sure, the government will just go, exactly.
Oh, it is brilliant, and nothing whatsoever to do with 12 to the Moon.
No,
how 12 to the Moon's influence has spread throughout.
But maybe it actually just does show just how bad this movie is that we've been spending more time talking about CSI Miami and the Brady Bunch.
It's highly forgettable. It's quite forgettable film. Unless you're sitting here watching it, making fun of it, it's forgettable. There's no star came out of this. I've only seen.
I try and watch everything with a find the good in it attitude. Granted, 12 to the Moon, I've got to admit, when I watched it for the first time last week, I was slightly bored throughout.
You keep waiting for something to happen, and when it does, you're still bored. Then stuff happens, and I'm still okay.
I have to admit, I think I actually liked it a little bit more than the two of you, because I just have a love of this old 50s, 60s black and white sort of science fiction.
You're part of that sort of messy liberal thing where you think everybody can get along if they're all locked in a place with their issues.
That's right, the damn liberals.
I have to admit, I like the. I like the parts where you were talking about earlier where this is what the future will look like. I like that conjecture that they put in films from this time. Mm-hmm. Oh, in 1980, we'll all be driving electric cars. Nope. But some things did happen. We do have the video communication anywhere in the world at any time. We have a phone.
Star Trek created the iPhone.
Star Trek did that. We have those kind of things. The transporter's probably around the corner. The electric cars very nearly on the doorstep. No need for gasoline or gosh, I'm trying to think of all the other movies that I've seen that have predicted what the future is going to like. We're not all going to wear silver clothes, though. Have you noticed that one? That used to be that's a big trope.
Star Trek
the
is so
silver
created
and the ones.
the Borg as well, which is what Twitter's like at the moment.
Yes.
Like, fit in with us, or you will be assimilated.
Twitter, we can't do. Our show's having a hard time with Twitter because it just moves too fast, and we don't have time to sit there and watch everything that's going on. It's kind of like you can sit there and watch it like a television.
That happens on there, and I'm like, what do you do all day?
I'm also quite fascinated by, you see people that you clearly know have jobs, and they are tweeting 12 hours a day. And you sort of think, do you actually have any time to do what you're actually paid to do?
I don't know how they do it. They must have publicists, or they're robots, or software that does it.
There are obviously robotic Twitter accounts, which just because you often see them because they never obviously interact with anybody. They're just making all these little statement. And if you actually get conned into following one, you'll actually notice that wait about 30 days and it repeats itself.
I've never noticed.
Did you hear that story recently about, was it Microsoft that created a thinking Twitter account, and it got trolled so much that it became one?
Oh, that's brilliant.
They had to take it down after like 3 days because it got trolled.
It was anti-Jew.
It was anti-Semitic. It was saying it was a Nazi. It was hilarious.
I can't believe I missed that.
I love those experiments.
That just sounds brilliant. That just sounds brilliant. But anyway, I should just let people know 12 to the Moon is available on YouTube if you do want to watch it. So because trust me, do not buy this movie. All right, if you really do want to see it,
by a high definition transfer. Let's just
no.
Yeah.
You can hop onto YouTube, just type in 12 to the Moon, and the full movie is there. One thing,
YouTube as well will give you an option on the side of more interesting things you could be watching.
Yeah, it does. Well, if you want to see the American MST3K version, it's season 5, episode 24, because it's sitting here right now because I was trying to finish watching it before the show.
That's with your knowledge there, and then you just gave it away. You shouldn't have said at the end.
I've got every single episode ever released on the server over here, so I can watch them all at any time. But anyway, I'm a nerd.
So anyway, if you want to watch 12 to the Moon, go to YouTube and maybe, I don't know, get a bottle of vodka, stick it in intravenously because you'll probably need it to survive.
Thinking about it, I'm all for continuity. This talking about Mystique there, it actually follows on from last week's show of War of the Worlds because the main character is called Clayton Forrester, which is the name of the character in War of the Worlds.
That's where he got it from, I believe.
Oh, well done.
Go.
They were big fans.
With this. We're not a trope.
Anyway, enough. It's time to move on to, I think, we have spent way too long.
Years.
We've been on the moon.
No. So look, quick break, and we'll be back with our third movie of the podcast. Now, third film of the podcast is, well, I know that Gary is a big fan of this, and I've got to admit, I really enjoyed it. I hadn't seen it until last week, or this week, whatever, and it is Deadly Embrace from 1989. And I'll tell you what, I'll let, because there's a reason I think why Gary likes this movie so much, so I'll let Gary give you a bit of an intro into this one, just for a change.
Oh, good. That totally wasn't planned. This is Gary speaking. I like this film because it's got film in it. No, it's a David DeCoteau movie. Everybody knows from the previous show about my love and admiration for David DeCoteau and his very, very artistic, amazing cinema abilities that he has.
Basically showing near naked men in every second scene.
Yes, that's the one. Anyway, but this is one of his earlier ones. His venture into the softcore thriller arena, when they were very, very popular in the sort of late 80s to early 90s. A very early appearance for Linnea Quigley as well, who is like horror royalty now. You know, all of us horror fans like stand up every time she appears on the screen and salute and things.
Oh, absolutely. And
yes, we do. She is a legend.
and God, she looks good in this movie too.
She does, and a little useless trivia, that is her own bathing suit she used in this movie. Ooh. Anyway, yes, the budget was so low, she brought her own. That's how it worked.
Has the bathing suit or the bikini become famous a bit like the blue bikini worn by Tracy Lords in Not of This Earth?
It might have done if people knew what this movie was.
Oh yeah, we should actually start with that, shouldn't we? Should we? Okay, I'll tell you what. I'll just give a quick
You're
rundown.
best at the rundowns. I'm not good at it.
So, look, Deadly Embrace. It's from 1989, and of course directed by David Dakota, as Gary said. Now stars Jean Michael Vincent. Yes, Mr. Airwolf himself. Mindy Miller, Lena Quigley, of course, as we said, Jack Carter, and also, was it Michelle Bauer?
Bauer.
It? Yeah.
Bauer.
And who has a very interesting role in this. It's sort of...
she's the female spirit of sex, is the official character.
Yeah, so it's not actually a talking line. It would be probably the best way to describe it. But our story is... it's obviously... It's an erotic... drama, an erotic mystery, an erotic sort of crime story, if you like. And Jan Michael Vincent, he basically plays a businessman who is... Oh, that hair. Oh, my God, that hair. But we'll get to that in a second. Basically plays a businessman who is having an affair and wants to leave his wife, or possibly even do a bit more because he doesn't want to lose 50% of everything that he owns. And he invites the Jack Carter character to come and stay at his villa and sort of be, I suppose, as a summer holiday job to sort of, clean the pool, do the gardening, all that sort of thing. And
typical porn job.
Yeah, that's exactly. Yes, does your pool need cleaning? He didn't deliver a pizza though, so that's but he, of course, but he ends up having an affair with the wife, played by Mindy Miller, and of course, Lena Quigley. Is playing the girlfriend of the character played by Jack Carter. So what basically happens is we've got a businessman who's trying to sort of get rid of his wife, if you might say. There's an affair going on between the poor boy and the wife, but the wife turns out to be, well, a voyeur. Would that be the right way to describe it, Gary?
Yes. She's got like a hidden camera behind the mirror to film him having sex.
And yes, with whether it be with her or the girlfriend. And but she turns out to be quite, shall we just say, mentally rather unstable, and falls in love with Jack Carter, and then of course decides that if she can't have him, nobody can have him, and then of course things start to go very much downhill with let's just say there's a bit of gunplay that comes into it. I won't give the ending away.
But not
Gary,
in the way you're all thinking now after he said all that.
Now, I know.
Great head Gillian Anderson.
Now, I know you love this, Gary. I mean, what did you? What is it about it that you really?
I like it because it's not one of his more well-known ones. You know, like when you really like a band and everybody goes nuts on them and they start playing the same songs over and over again. You're like, I was there at the beginning, bitch. And you tend to like album tracks more than singles because you don't hear them as often. This is one of those films. It is. It's a good. You can sort of see the start of what Dakota would become later on in this. It's even though like it's a typical aimed at straight men erotic thriller, there is more male nudity than you would expect in one of those types of films. And it does build up a lot to what his career would turn out later on.
Well, it must be said that, doesn't it? Because in this movie, we of course have, pretty much. I think apart from Jan Michael Vincent, I think basically everybody gets naked in this film. But it is interesting, though, that we do have a shower scene with Jack Carter, which is not usual in these sorts of movies. It's normally just the women who are having the shower scenes. but in this one we've actually got a guy as well. So it's I did like the way it was even-handed, in regards to the nudity. It was going to show as much of the guys as it was going to show of the girls, and I thought that was really good.
Mm-hmm. Yes, definitely.
What do you? And the other thing too that should be said is,
are you sure you're saying like Jack Carter's the one that you think it is?
Isn't that Jack Carter?
No, Jack Carter was an older gentleman.
Oh, I've got them.
You're thinking of Ken Abraham. Abraham, who is probably one of the most beautiful creatures Dakota has ever discovered.
I'm so sorry to everyone listening. I've got
you
his
don't
name
want
wrong.
the image of Jack Carter in your head doing things to
No.
May he rest in peace. Yes.
Yeah, I apologise to everybody who have just suddenly sort of said, "There's no way in hell I'm going to watch this movie."
He would have been about 66 at the time, I think. Yeah, something like that.
It's a bit like the remake movie of The Sweeney, and I still remember it was one of the first Blu-rays I actually bought, because it came free with my Blu-ray player when I bought it. And
wow.
And I still remember the very first high definition Blu-ray I watched, I got to see Ray Winston's ass.
He talks out of it.
But it must be said though, for 1989, it is kind of soft in regards to sort of nudity and sets and that sort of thing, compared to a lot of the sort of erotic sort of mysteries or erotic dramas that would follow in the 1990s. I would think it's still pretty tame, wouldn't you think, Gary?
But for an 80s one, it's quite strong in comparison to what came before it.
That is very true. Yeah, that's very true. Yeah, absolutely. Are you sort of a fan, Cliff, of the sort of erotic drama, that you often get on sort of, late night TV and so forth?
Skinemax.
They're called Skinemax.
Yeah, Skinemax, that's right.
Skinemax flicks. I can tell you the only memory I have of really watching them was, let's see how much of a setup this is going to need. In the cable channel systems that we have here in the United States, at one point, if you wanted to watch those things, they would come to your house and take the filters off of your cable box so you could receive those channels. But if you were an enterprising teenager, you knew how to take those filters off yourself or bypass them by kind of wiggling the sort of take that out of context. The channel selector between channels, and sometimes you could see a breast as the scrambling cleared up and then begin to scramble again, and that's another. Yeah. So I've seen them. That's kind of what they call hotel fare. That's what's on the hotels. It's without having to do subscribe to the porn channel. You can watch Skinemax.
The one thing I have to admit, though, about this one, Deadly Embrace, is it does have a real story. There is a real plot to this, and it's the characters do change a little bit. We do need to sort of follow, will there be a murder? Won't there be a murder? It's there is a real story behind this, and
it's sort of like Murder, She Wrote with boobs.
Yes.
No. Ruin Angela Lansbury forever.
Well, it's like, Angela Lansbury, one of those characters you would never want to be friends with, because you just know.
No, you don't want her to come sign books in your town because people will die.
That's exactly.
I'd invite her to parties and just see everybody shit themselves and be like, "Oh God, Angela."
It's like was it Midsummer Murders? And Midsummer. Honestly, it must be the crime capital of the United Kingdom.
I read somewhere that if you add up all the people that have died in Midsummer over a certain amount of time, the whole population of Midsummer has died 6 times.
Oh, that's beautiful. That is absolutely beautiful. But
if Murder, She Wrote and Stephen King have taught me anything, it's to avoid Maine like the plague.
Yeah. Nobody lives in Maine. I can tell you that. Nobody lives there. It's a big stage. It's a big sound stage. Nobody actually lives in Maine.
Wasn't the bird set in Maine as well, which makes it even more.
Yes, it was, wasn't it?
Every Stephen King just about is set in Maine. Just about it, because he lives there. He's one of the only people. I think he rents, actually. He summers there or something.
But one thing we must say is, because it's from 1989, the mullet lives in this movie.
I'm in South Carolina, dude. The mullet's still alive.
But I've got to admit, it's an impressive mullet that he has. It really is.
We still have payphones too, but that's different.
You've still got payphones.
So
And
yeah,
the
we did.
Confederate flag.
A few of them.
Oh my goodness. But anyway, but one thing I suppose maybe leading on from the Confederate flag is Gene Michael.
We still have those too. We like to tear them down for a little bit when people aren't looking.
Gene Michael Vincent.
Us.
Gene Michael Vincent in this, I swear, is channeling Donald Trump.
He say I haven't seen it. What does he do?
Okay, he's got the exact same haircut as Donald Trump in this movie, and he is this evil, horrible businessman who will lie and cheat and do whatever he wants. But it's that if it was just that, you'd sort of say, "Oh yeah, he's just playing an evil businessman." That's fine. But when you see his haircut in this one, you look at it, you say, "It's the Donald. It's him.
Well,
He's channeling him."
Trump was a thing on TV in '89. He was being interviewed a lot, and he was a big social mover and shaker and builder in New York at the time. So it's not impossible that he pulled some nuance from Donald Trump's attitude on the TV interviews and things. It's not Trump impossible to realize. Exactly.
But did you see that too, Gary? Did you see that, Gary, or was it just me?
Well, I haven't watched it since like this whole presidential marathon that's been going on for 18 years has going on. I mean,
I was in high school when this started.
Yeah. So I haven't really sort of looked at it in context of the modern world yet. So I watch select scenes once in a while, but that's a different story.
But the other thing too is that I do actually wonder if Jan Michael Vincent actually Skyped his role in, because he doesn't actually seem to ever be in the same set as everybody else.
He was like that in Airwolf. It was like he's just there. He's a placeholder.
There you go. I can confirm that he was cast for a day. It was cast a day prior to shooting the picture. He worked for just 2 days and supplied his own wardrobe. So there's a good chance that he did all of his scenes in one go and they edited it in afterwards.
It's like there's that terrible movie Dark Web. I don't know if everyone's seen Dark Web, and it's I've forgotten the American actor who's in it. I'm having one of those moments. Not Lou Gossett Jr. Danny. Help me, guys.
Danny Glover.
Danny Glover. So,
I was enjoying watching him struggle.
Sorry.
And Danny Glover does all his scenes via video, and he's never actually in the same room. And I do actually wonder whether it was quite literally just they just sort of said, "Danny, we just need you for about an hour. Can you just talk into the camera for an hour?"
Too long, so they just get them when they can.
But that's another one, filmed with people in different spots, and please don't waste your money and watch Dark Web. It's terrible. It is absolutely terrible. Yeah.
Since Lethal Weapon, he's been doing. It seems like every show or movie I see him in or associated with, he's a cash grab now. Danny Glover is.
It's just the name.
He shows up for 5 minutes, or in the film for 5 minutes, and then you never see him again, and he just gets a check and leaves. It's sad. He was really good in Color Purple, and
yes, he was,
and Lethal Weapon for that matter. If you like that kind of movie,
actually, the movie I really quite liked him in. This is going to sound a bit. I don't know. People are going to laugh, so I'll get ready for it. I really liked him in the Disney movie Operation Dumbo Drop.
Operation Dumbo Drop.
And you have seen it.
Ray Liotta in that?
Yeah, Ray Liotta, yeah. Yeah, he's in it as well.
He's also doing the money grabs now.
But he looks really good in that. He's really fit and toned and so forth in that movie. Mind you, he's supposedly meant to be like a Green Beret Special Forces sort of person, so you would hope so. Unlike that, was that terrible movie with Steven Seagal, on the warship?
Yeah, with all of them.
Now who was he was in the Celebrity Apprentice. He was in Celebrity Big Brother too, I think, wasn't he? What's his name?
Under Siege.
Under Siege. And
Tommy Lee Jones.
Gary Busey.
Gary Busey. And Gary Busey is meant to be a naval officer in that, and his gut is hanging about 3 inches over his belt. Just, what were they thinking?
Busey is a joke here now. Gary Busey is the meme of insanity. That's what he is. If you see his photo, that means somebody's making
brother.
He was on The Apprentice here.
Didn't he win? Didn't he win Celebrity Big Brother? Or
he did, yes.
So, and that's
which shows you how bad the rest of the cast were.
Well, especially remembering
he had practice being in asylums.
Well, for anyone too who's who's listening from the United States or Canada, British Big Brother, of course, is by public vote. So remember, that means the public voted for him
to win. The very first American ever to win Celebrity Big Brother.
That sounds like the Hunger Games. It does. That does sound like. I guess it's like our Survivor. That first couple seasons where people were near death at the end of the show.
Yep. That's exactly what it's like. It's the Hunger Games for the people in the show, and it's Saw for the people on the outside who have to deal with the fan base.
Saw's another good... I didn't think about that. That's a good analogy.
But anyway, getting back to Deadly Embrace...
Sorry.
Before we move on to Lord of the Flies.
Kill the pig, drink his blood.
I love
a reference.
It must be said for anyone who wants to go and check this out that it is still pretty, tame. I mean, in regards to nudity and sets and that sort of thing, you're going to see more on HBO these days, to be truthful. So don't be too worried about it. You're not going to, this is not a porn film. This is an erotic drama, and I really liked it.
It's very of its time, and it's good for the to showcase the early works of Dakota, Linnea, and Michelle Bauer.
Yes,
as a horror fan, I mean this film. A lot of David Dakota's early softcore stuff was very hard to find at one point. It was just on VHS. I mean, I've still got my VHS copy of Deadly Embrace that I paid a small fortune for. And then, 2 months later, a DVD came out, which was annoying.
Don't you hate it when that happens?
I know. But yeah, it from a horror fan point of view, especially the 80s and 90s sort of cheesy full moon pictures, Charlie Band pictures and things like that. It is a good little throwback to see how it all began.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And it's if you're used to that sort of skin mats, as we said, whether it be a lot of the erotic comedies that are made, today, or whether it's the more erotic dramas that were made, let's say, through the 90s and early thousands. This one you will find a bit different because, as Gary's saying, it's sort of like, it is 80s. But, I really, really enjoyed it. And I love the mullet. I just love the mullet.
I love Ken Abraham. He's pretty. He's in Creepazoids with Linnea Quigley as well, which, if I remember correctly, came out 2 years before Deadly Embrace. So it was like a double act that everybody wanted to see again because they had a famous shower scene in Creepazoids, and everybody was like, "Oh, they're pretty. Let's do that again." So if you enjoyed the shower scene in Creepazoids, you'll enjoy some of the scenes.
Yes, and but what did you think about this whole fantasy sex scenes that were in it? Like the
Michelle Bauer female spirit.
Was it needed? Did you?
Well, it wasn't actually part of the original movie. It was filmed afterwards and edited in.
Why?
I'm not quite sure. Probably to give Michelle a role in the movie. probably, because she was part of the three biggest Scream Queens at the time, which was Linnea Quigley, Michelle Bauer, and I did this last time, didn't I? I did this last time,
Yes.
I forgot Michelle Bauer last time. I don't remember Michelle Bauer. I forgot the other one. Oh my god! Oh god! They're gonna hate me.
They're not going to come find you, are they?
I don't know.
Or
I've
maybe
got a
they
lot of
will.
friends
Maybe they will. I
Friends
don't
with
know.
their friends, and I could end up like getting into such deep shit. Stevens.
What name are you looking for?
Brink Stevens. It's there.
Okay.
Brink Stevens.
Yep.
Michelle Bauer and Linnea Quigley, and they were like the three famous Scream Queens of the time. And I think it was a way of getting another one of the Scream Queens in.
Well, it reminds me a little bit of the movie Mummy's Kiss, where if you actually have a look at the cast, there's a reasonably famous sort of Scream Queen who's in it, and I've forgotten her name, unfortunately, but it's not really all that relevant. But it's interesting that she's actually gets top billing in the movie, but she only appears in the opening credits. So she does a dance, right, as the opening credits are running, and then as soon as the credits have stopped and the movie starts, she's not in it. She has nothing to do with the film whatsoever.
There is one thing I will say about the Michelle Bauer moments, the female spirit of sex character, is the fact that it is beautifully shot. The lighting is amazing. I mean, Dakota really knows how to get the best out of his leading ladies. He always has done, but that's because he's a gay and we're awesome. We know how to like women. We know how to like women at their most beautiful. And then David Dakota does that brilliantly with those scenes with Michelle Bauer. I mean, it is hypnotizing. You know, when she pops up on the screen, it's like, whoa, that's pretty.
No, I have to admit, he shoots it very artistically. Like it's almost like it's like a dance. If you sort of like, and in some ways it reminds me a lot of some of the, like Jackie Chan films and so forth out of Hong Kong, where you watch a lot of the fight scenes and they're choreographed almost like they're dancing. Rather than actually fighting. And I think this is sort of much the same. It's choreographed in such a way that, it's like watching two people dance rather than the other thing.
It's beautifully shot. The lighting is amazing. I mean, it's like something you'd expect to see in an Italian giallo movie. I mean, the lighting is just phenomenal. It's very Suspiria-esque.
Yes, it's no, definitely. I think everyone should actually, give this a go. If you've ever been in a hotel and you've sort of, watched an erotic drama, then you have some sort of idea, what you're getting. Mind you, in many ways, if you've ever watched HBO, you know what you're going to get. So I reckon give it a try. And if you want to sort of see that idea of, we all know now where erotic movies are, basically, the erotic comedies and, and so forth that we get. And if you want to see... Yes, of course, who mates quite a lot of them and mates them very well
Cleavage
too.
Field is one of the greatest experiences.
He's got some great titles. What is it? Did he
Add
do
an extra T, and he's got a few of them as well.
He's made some. Oh God, he's made some great movies. I've totally lost track of what I was saying. I have absolutely no idea. No, it's just what I was saying was that if if you like the erotic comedies and if you like the erotic dramas of the 90s, then give this erotic drama of the 80s, a try. Like, watch where it all started. That's the
interesting
thing.
factoid is they've recently discovered the masters for Deadly Embrace, and it's coming out on Blu-ray.
Oh, fantastic.
They're releasing it with Murder Weapon, another one of Dakota's softcore entries from that time period.
Do we know?
Vinegar Syndrome are releasing it in the US.
Do we know when?
Hang on, I'll get a release date if there is one. Street date of October 25th, 2016.
Ah, okay.
So you can get Deadly Embrace and Murder Weapon, and it's all HD glory.
Oh, perfect. So look,
Michelle Bauer's going to glow in HD and be like,
no,
3D.
no.
Had 3D, damn it.
So look, I'll be buying my copy, so I recommend everybody go out and buy one as well. Most definitely. So Deadly Embrace. I give it a thumbs up. I reckon it's worth a shot. And so please, everybody, check it out.
Yep.
Well, that's a wrap, pretty much for podcast 11. I'm pretty sure it's 11. I'm losing track now of which one it is.
It's 11.
It's 11. So
it's 11.
Yeah, lucky was it Led's 11? Lucky 11, something like that. So thanks for listening, everybody. Do appreciate it. And remember, if you've got any ideas, thoughts about movies you want us to talk about, or get totally distracted and then talk about a totally different movie when we're talking about that movie, please, please let us know. Send in those suggestions and so forth. And as always, really around about this time, we really should do some shout outs, but seeing that everybody is basically here that we normally do shout-outs for, I reckon pretty much everyone can do their own shout-outs. So, look, I'll just start off. Remember, please, you can follow this podcast on Twitter, which is, of course, The Zaius Report, all one word. You can, of course, now follow the show on Facebook as well, which has exactly the same address, The Zaius Report. So you can go to either or go to both, Hey, need the numbers, go to both. And, of course, you can follow me personally on Twitter if you want to at, I've forgotten my own Twitter address, Martini Superdry. That's right. So, guys, obviously, I know you want to give some shout-outs. Who goes first? All right, Gary.
Yeah, just my usual. Dr. Detroit at Big Brother Radio, which is at Big Bro Radio. This always surprises me every time. We do it every single time. You'd think I've learned by now. And bcrising.com, which is the horror site that I review for Body Count Rising.
Yes, you were about to say body count, weren't you, rather than BC?
Yeah, I've got to remember the BC. I used to call it the site by its actual name.
And, of course, your personal Twitter address, Gary, is...
at Donald Trump.
That's a bad idea.
It's at GJ69.
Excellent. And Cliff?
You can hear me on the Only Funny to Us podcast. That's onlyfunnytous.com, and we are OFTU Podcast on Twitter.
And you have a Facebook page as well?
Oh, yeah. Facebook.com/onlyfunnytous. And you can see when the shows are coming out, which they're always out. Eastern Standard Time American is 8 o'clock on Mondays.
Perfect. And there's something else we should say. I think we mentioned it very, very briefly on the last podcast. If any of these movies we talk about, or you just love buying your movies off Amazon, for argument's sake, you can go to the Only Funny to Us website. And if you, in fact, Cliff, can you explain how people do it?
If they go to onlyfunnytous.com and look down the right side, there's a block of text that explains that you click that text and you go straight to your your Amazon.com account, and then you can bookmark that one. So anytime you buy anything from Amazon, we get a slight cut of the money, and it doesn't cost you any more. And even though we can see what you bought, we can't tell who bought it. So we do go through there occasionally and find out that someone has bought a $250 cat litter box. Or, yes, that happened.
The Body Count Rising site does that with my friend's site. And I ordered a few things one day, and he said, "Have you been ordering stuff on Amazon?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "What on earth made you buy the Breastfed Wives with Peter Pan?" I was like, well...
Oh my goodness.
We don't go that far. We don't get personal, but anyway, yeah, we appreciate it if you go through there and buy anything. And Warren needs to set up his own, so he needs to use the space to sell his own Amazon promotions.
Yeah, I should think about doing
that.
I need a website first.
Well, I can handle that if you need one.
Well, it's all
stuff. I'm here to help. I fix things. That's what I do.
I do appreciate that, Cliff. I really do, and I do want to say thank you for all your help, especially advice with things like software and stuff like that. It's been it's been absolutely fantastic.
Anytime.
So I think that's a wrap. Anything else, guys, you wanted to mention?
Oh, I need to correct myself. I said tvtropes.com. It's tvtropes.org.
Ah, excellent.
And we will be expecting payment from the TV Tropes people.
Yes. Check to be made payable to.
Yes, pay for play. Come on, it's quite acceptable these days, from what I hear. So please, yes, most definitely.
Also, I'm still waiting for a thank you note because I'm paying for David Dakota's house to be mortgaged.
You paid off a car payment.
That new Paul is had fitted. Me.
would there be a single one of his films you don't own?
Oh, there is a few. I mean, there's a few very hard to find ones. I mean, I'd have to go through the list in full detail to work out what I've got and what I haven't, because I forget myself what I have.
It's a long list. It's a really
It is a very long list.
But worth every minute. Worth every minute.
Oh, definitely.
No worries. All right. Well, thanks, guys, for this. This has been a great fun show. Actually, it's been one of the most fun ones I think we've done, to be truthful. So thanks, thanks everybody, and thanks for listening. And we'll of course be back next weekend with.
Is that a threat? Is that a threat?
Yes.
first.
So we'll of course be back next weekend with a podcast number 12, and we will leave you, as we always leave you, with the lovely and charming Alana Evans. See you later. See you guys.
Bye.
Oh, yeah.